Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're journeying back in time, thousands of years ago, to the land of pyramids and papyrus. We're diving deep into the world of the pharaohs, the god kings of ancient Egypt. Forget what you've seen in the movies, because the real story is even more fascinating. Who were these powerful rulers? How did they live? What did they believe? And what legacies did they leave behind that still captivate us today? Grab your virtual pith helmet, because our expedition into the heart of ancient Egypt starts right now. So, what exactly was a pharaoh? The word itself means great house, which originally referred to the king's palace. Over time, it came to mean the ruler himself. But a pharaoh wasn't just a king or an emperor. They were seen as living gods, a direct link between the divine world and the mortal realm. They were the high priest of every temple, the commander-in-chief of the army, and the ultimate judge of the land. Their authority was absolute. Imagine having that on your resume. The pharaoh's job was to maintain Mat, the ancient Egyptian concept of order, truth, balance, and justice. If the Nile flooded properly, the harvest was good, and Egypt was safe from its enemies, it was because the pharaoh was doing their job right. Let's start at the very beginning. The story of the pharaohs begins around 3100 BC with a ruler named Narmer, or perhaps means historians still debate this. He's credited with uniting Upper and Lower Egypt into a single kingdom, an event depicted on the famous Narmer palette. This unification kicked off the early dynastic period and established the blueprint for pharaonic rule for the next 3 millennia. The iconic double crown, combining the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red crown of Lower Egypt, symbolized this powerful union. From this point on, Egypt was ruled by a succession of dynasties, family lines of rulers, that we now group into periods like the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. When you think of pharaohs, you probably think of pyramids. And for good reason. The Old Kingdom, often called the Age of the Pyramids, is when these incredible structures were built. It all started with Djoser and his brilliant architect, Imhotep. They built the first step pyramid at Saqqara, a revolutionary design that stacked mastaba tombs on top of each other. This set the stage for the Great Pyramid of Giza, built for the pharaoh Khufu. For thousands of years, it was the tallest man-made structure on Earth. These weren't just tombs, they were resurrection machines, designed to ensure the pharaoh's successful journey to the afterlife and their rebirth as a god. The sheer scale of these projects tells you everything you need to know about the power and resources a pharaoh commanded. But it wasn't all about building pyramids. After the Old Kingdom came a period of instability, but Egypt rose again in the Middle Kingdom. This era is often seen as a classical age for art, literature, and culture. Pharaohs of this time were portrayed more as shepherds of their people, rather than distant god-kings. They focused on strengthening the country, digging canals for irrigation, and building forts to protect the borders. It was a time of prosperity and cultural flourishing, showing a different, more administrative side to pharaonic rule. Then came the Golden Age, the New Kingdom. This is the era of the most famous pharaohs we know today. These weren't just rulers, they were empire builders. Pharaohs like Thutmose III, often called the Napoleon of Egypt, led military campaigns that expanded Egypt's influence all the way into the Near East. And then there's Hatshepsut, one of history's most powerful women. Originally a regent for her young stepson, she declared herself pharaoh and ruled for over 2 decades. She wore the traditional pharaonic regalia, including the false beard, and ushered in a period of peace and great building projects, like her stunning mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri. She proved that a woman could rule Egypt just as effectively as any man. Of course, we can't talk about the New Kingdom without mentioning the heretic king, Akhenaten. He turned Egyptian society completely upside down. He abandoned the traditional pantheon of gods and declared that there was only one god, Theoden, represented by the sun disk. He moved the capital city to a brand new site called Amarna and oversaw a radical shift in Egyptian art, which became more naturalistic and intimate. For a society based on thousands of years of tradition, this was a massive shock. After his death, his revolution was quickly undone. His son, Tutankhamun, the famous boy king, restored the old gods and moved the capital back to Thebes. King Tut is famous not for what he did in his short reign but for the incredible discovery of his nearly intact tomb by Howard Carter in 1920, to which gave us an unprecedented glimpse into the wealth and ritual of a pharaoh's burial. The last truly great pharaoh of the New Kingdom was Ramesses II, or Ramesses the Great. And he certainly lived up to the name. He ruled for an astonishing 67 years, fathered over 100 children, and was a master of propaganda. He covered Egypt in monuments to himself, often recarving the statues of previous pharaohs with his own name. He fought the famous Battle of Kadesh against the Hittites, and although it was more of a draw, he portrayed it as a stunning victory all over his temple walls. His long reign marked the peak of Egypt's power and influence, leaving a legacy of colossal statues and temples like Abu's symbol that still inspire awe today. So, what was daily life like for a pharaoh? It was a mix of divine ritual and state administration. The pharaoh's day would start with elaborate purification and dressing ceremonies, where they were transformed from a mortal into the living embodiment of the god Horus. They would then perform temple rituals, meet with viziers and officials to hear reports and make decisions, and act as the supreme judge. But it wasn't all work. They also enjoyed hunting, fishing, and lavish banquets in the palace with their family. The royal family, especially the great royal wife, held immense importance. She wasn't just a consort, she played a crucial role in religious ceremonies and could even act as regent. The pharaoh's ultimate concern was the afterlife. They spent their entire lives preparing for death. This wasn't something to be feared, but a transition to an eternal existence among the gods. This belief drove the complex process of mummification, which aimed to preserve the body perfectly for the soul, or Ka, to recognize. The tombs, from the pyramids of Giza to the hidden chambers in the Valley of the Kings, were filled with everything the pharaoh would need in the next life: furniture, food, chariots, weapons, and magical spells from the Book of the Dead to help them navigate the dangerous underworld and achieve immortality. The age of the pharaohs didn't end overnight. After Ramesses the Great, Egypt's power began to wane. The country faced internal struggles and a series of invasions by foreign powers, including the Libyans, Nubians, Assyrians, and Persians. For periods, foreigners even sat on the throne as pharaohs, adopting the titles and traditions. The final chapter was written by the Greeks and Romans. After Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, his general Ptolemy founded a new dynasty. The last pharaoh of Egypt was the famous Cleopatra VII, a Ptolemaic ruler. After her death in 30 BC, Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire, and the 3,000-year-long line of pharaohs came to an end. Even though the last pharaoh ruled over 2,000 years ago, their legacy is all around us. They gave us monumental architecture, incredible art, and one of the world's first great civilizations. They pioneered advancements in medicine, mathematics, and engineering. The stories of their power, their ambition, their faith, and their quest for immortality continue to fascinate and inspire us. From museum exhibits drawing massive crowds to blockbuster movies, the pharaohs of ancient Egypt are as captivating today as they were in their own time. They truly achieved their ultimate goal. They became eternal. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through ancient Egypt. What do you find most fascinating about the pharaohs? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time.